Hello, everyone. We are back for the University of Maryland Alumni Spotlight. We have three incredible guests today, Terry, Byron, and Ryan, joining us for a conversation. They're all experts in their own way in real estate, but we use this spotlight to highlight the amazing things Maryland Terrapins are doing, how they're making a difference in the world, and hopefully they can give us some good perspective. So for you all, welcome. How's it going?
Great. Wonderful.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Going great. Happy to be here. Looking forward to a great discussion.
Well, we're happy to have you guys. So the first question, we're going to start it off. Sam and I have done a ton of podcasts, 400 plus, and we always start with the same question, all about an elevator pitch. We'd love to learn a little bit more about who you are, what you're about, maybe what year you graduated the University of Maryland, what you studied, and of course, what you work, what you're building towards in the real estate world. So Terry, we'll start with you on the elevator pitch.
So hi, I am Terry Farri. Yes, I have the rhyming name. Some people say Farri, but it's not as fun. So I have to own it. I went to Maryland. I am a true Terp. I've been there twice. Undergrad, I was an accounting major, went into public accounting, thought I would have been doing that all my life somehow or another. I own a title company now, so I do real estate settlements, and I've been doing that for, let's just say, a lot of years. My second time I went back to school, I got my master's from the Smith School of Business, and it was never, I don't even think there was a second choice. It was always that I would go back to the Smith School. It was done. I'm a Terp. And then, so now I'm actually taking their certification for AI to get AI certified, which they launched, and I'm just getting started in that, and I'm like, wow. They always have just such great professors and just great classes and things like that. So happy to be
Well,
here.
thanks, Terry. We're happy to have you. We need to dive a little bit more into that AI certification. Very curious, but obviously want to give Ryan and Byron the chance to give their elevator pitch. Ryan, we'll hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Parker. Thanks for the introduction. My elevator pitch starts with I grew up in Carroll County, Maryland, in Eldersburg. I thought I was going to go play Division III basketball somewhere, as surprising as that may be to some of the listeners out there. Ultimately, I applied to Maryland because I grew up a Terp fan. It was in-state. It was a why not apply? Visited Maryland, and it sounds cliche, but it was the first time I got that feeling like this is where I'm supposed to be. So scrapped the plans of playing D3 hoops and went to Maryland. Did club basketball, the intramurals, I'd pick up 4 times a week, so it ended up being a great fit for me. Got into the Smith School, so I started there in 2008. Got in as a rising junior and studied general business management with a specialization of entrepreneurship. Really had no idea what I wanted to do. I was always a social connector, former athlete, so I started applying to a lot of different sales jobs. Ultimately, sat down with 2 family friends to discuss real estate. I was like, this is what I'm going to go do. Interviewed with a small boutique called Mannequin here in the Baltimore area and a large commercial global firm called Cars International. And ultimately started at Mannequin just as an intern, making $10 an hour. I just someone needs to give me a shot. So fast forward 13 years, I've worked with my now business partner since entering the business. He and I have worked together since I was 22 and have been at a couple different companies, most recently at CBRE, the largest commercial real estate firm in the world. And he and I specialize in tenant representation, predominantly in the office world. Thanks again for having me. Excited for the rest of the conversation.
We're excited to have you. And Byron, round us out.
All right, so my elevator pitch is a little different. So I grew up in Largo, Maryland, went to high school at Episcopal High School, right in the Alexandria area, boarding school. Like Ryan, I was kind of toying with the sports idea. Figured, it was between Wake Forest, Villanova, a few other great schools, but I was like, hey, I'm hometown kind of guy, so I ended up picking Maryland, and while I was there, I got to be involved with the basketball team, both men's and women's, which was a fantastic experience. And my story kind of started in college. So I was paying way too much in rent. So I moved home and I renovated my parents' basement, turned it into an in-law suite. Basically, my uncle was supposed to do it. I was hiring him to do it. He started showing up, stopped showing up. And so I picked up a bunch of skills through finishing that renovation. Fast forward to after undergrad, I ended up going to Georgetown for my master's. I was a grad assistant there with the basketball team, so I traveled around. And when I graduated from Georgetown, as a thank you to my parents, I renovated the main floor of the house. People kind of saw that video. I was like, no, I'm going into sports. They were asking me to do things like, hey, can you mount this TV or do this? Like, no, I'm going into sports. I wanted to be front office of a professional team, NBA specifically. But eventually those no's started to turn to yeses, and my company was born, and the rest is history.
Well, I have to say then, too, that I also wanted to play basketball at Maryland, and I'm so glad we're virtual because you guys can't see how short I am. But that was quickly shot down. Mark Turgeon did not appreciate my lack of height. But I'll give our elevator pitch to round things out. Parker and I are so honored and excited to be here helping to lead these UMD Smith School alumni spotlights. Our second one, specifically here in real estate, Parker and I both graduated from University of Maryland a handful of years ago. And upon graduation, we went into Big Four Consulting. And there we started our little side hustle called Elevation Nation, where we've interviewed over 400 folks on our podcast talking about the young adult mindset, from entrepreneurs to Olympians to CEOs and a heck of a lot of Terps. And so it's our way to give back to the community that really built us by doing these alumni spotlights and hoping to shed a light on you three incredible Terps and share some knowledge along the way. So thank you three for being here. I want to go a little bit deeper into what all three of you kind of hit on. And Byron, we can start with you on your career journey. You obviously talked a fair amount about how you started, thanks to your uncle not showing up. We appreciate him doing that because you're on an incredible journey. But talk to us how you went from just renovating your parents' home to turning that into a legit business.
Great question. So it was definitely a decision. It was a decision. It was a conscious decision. When I was at Georgetown, the head coach at the time was Patrick Ewing. So he made phone calls to Pat Riley, to Larry Bird, to some of the heavy hitters in the league and say, hey, I got a guy, let's give him a chance. So I had opportunities within sports and could have definitely gone in that direction. But when I evaluated kind of why for a lifelong, at that point, lifelong desire to be in the sports world, when I really started to look at missing holidays, missing birthdays, missing, family time and stuff like that, I've kind of pros and cons list, realized that I can kind of achieve the same desires through starting my own business. And so once I fully recognized that, and, there was a couple other factors. I was able to call people and ask that who are in the positions that I would be entering in the NBA. And so kind of asked them their opinions, but it didn't check out. So once I made that decision, it was one, I would say figuring out what my competitive advantage was going to be, like what's different about New Wave. It was two, making sure that my quality and the things that we offer are not only that those aren't only there, but I'm also on paper licensed and qualified to do the things that people are asking me to do. And then from there, it was kind of some of the things you learn in Maryland, which is, the ability to network, talk to people, live up to your word. So those three things I would say got me to where I am. New Wave, it stands for, I'm a young black man in a predominantly white industry. And basically I was going to bring a new wave. The reason why it's spelled with a U instead of an E is because it's still about the clients, whether it's commercial or residential, it's still about the clients. And then, I'm a guy based on integrity, and my company is the same way. So kind of those three things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a beautiful origin story for all the success that you've obviously had. So thanks for sharing that with us. Ryan, on to you. Starting $10 an hour as an intern, man. I think we all resonate with that grinding when we're young to now your incredible career that you've had. Talk us through that journey for you.
Well, first I want to touch on the Turge not being a big fan of your height, Sam, because I think both Turge and Gary had a similar opinion on my 3-inch vertical. So I wasn't that appealing playing for the men's hoops team. So I wanted to mention that. And then, it seems like Terps kind of in the world that Byron was talking about that have moved into the sports business world. I'm not sure if you guys have done a podcast on that, but I have a few friends that did go into that industry that I wouldn't be surprised if Byron actually knows. So if you have done one or want to do a future one, would love to assist with some of the guests maybe. But in terms of getting into kind of what I do, I'd sat down with a bunch of family friends exploring different industries. Ultimately sat down with one of my dad's best friends who ran a local construction company called Mannequin, and another one of my best friend's dads who was working for a big REIT when malls were still a thing, and he was helping lease them up. And ultimately, I knew I wanted to get into sales. I was speaking with both of them, and they were like, real estate is one of the more lucrative industries you can get into from a sale if you're in a sales role. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. So I had those 2 interviews. The one at College International, I interviewed with 9 partners, got absolutely ripped to shreds. Was super green, tried to do the classic research that you learn in college, but just could only do so much. Sat down with the guy running brokerage at Mannequin, and he points to my resume and says, "This is all I need to know." And it says Craig West's friend, which was my dad's buddy. So he happened to also be a Terp. We talked Greek life because he was in Greek life. We talked Bentleys. We talked Cornerstone. It was like talking to a buddy. Completely 180 from my other interview. And so ultimately he came back to me and said, "Hey, we don't have a budget to hire a junior broker." And I said, "Well, you'd mentioned a young man that started as an intern and then went full time." He's like, "Well, you'd be making $10 an hour." I was like, "I don't care. I just need a shot." So they ended up hiring me. I worked to get my real estate license and then went full time at the start of 2013. Met my then business partner. As I mentioned in my earlier elevator pitch, we've worked together since I was 22 years old. And so he was doing office tenant rep at the time. So as a young guy in the business, I just adopted that. And as I've built my career and seen different firms and grown, it's a really long sales cycle. So you have to be very patient, which was never a strong suit of mine. But for whatever reason, I had that vision that I was going to grind and kind of be successful. Ultimately, something that Byron hit on in terms of relationships, I was a connector socially, and so that's what really drew me to real estate is connecting people, adding value, and just being a good person and listening. And so what I was really passionate about was, that dynamic of the business. And then I think even as a young man in the business, I was interfacing with a lot of very high-level executive CEOs at different types of companies. So the opportunity to meet and ultimately advise them on a really big decision for their firm in terms of their office lease. So it's been a great path for me, and it continues to be something that I'm passionate about.
And at the center of all that, I wouldn't be a good host if I didn't push on the fact that a Terp connection really gave you the foundation to have a great conversation and then ultimately get you on your career path. And as Parker and I have continued to have conversations for these UMD alumni spotlights, of course, every university says, "Our alumni make this place incredible. They'll always take care of you." There is something special about Maryland pride. I think we all have seen it. We all have experienced it. And it does make our UMD connection help us build our career paths. So I'm so glad that helped you, Ryan, and got you to where you are today. Terry, you're the lifelong learner of the group here, going to UMD nonstop. Tell us, how's campus? I want to hear about your career story. I feel like you're probably there more than we are. Talk to us about your journey.
Well, originally, the whole reason that I went into accounting was because I had a high school teacher who said, if you want a job, you should go into accounting because you will always have a job. There's so many, ways you can go. And I was like, okay, well, I want a job because I was paying for college myself. My parents didn't have a lot of money. They couldn't afford it. It was like, if you want to go, you're going to pay for it. And I worked multiple jobs. I mean, during the day, I was working at a bank. At night, I was a waitress. I was doing, or server, they call it now. But even when I went to Maryland, I was working at Santa Fe Cafe, slinging beers on Thursday nights, just had to do what it took. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this accounting thing. And I actually got an internship through University of Maryland's on-campus recruiting thing for a firm called, well, they're now called Resnick Cone, but they were Resnick Feder and Silverman at the time. And then when I graduated, I went to work for them. And I interviewed with a couple other places and stuff, but I felt like they were a good fit because people who knew me, I'm not your typical accountant kind of personality. My first week there, I showed up in a hot pink suit. It was like truly like Legally Blonde, and I just, that was me. But I didn't mind talking to clients. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And like I thought I would stay in accounting for a long time. And I knew I was going to go back to school. I wasn't sure whether it was going to be to go to law school or whatever. But when I was studying for the CPA exam, right after that, after doing that, I was like, I need a break. That was tough, and I need to start working, make some money to pay for school. Well, then life happens. We have families and kids and things, and you put that on the back burner. And then, but once I got into real estate, it was like, it opens doors to so many things. It's not just that I own a title company now. I have residential properties, I have Airbnbs, commercial properties, things like that. Just everything just fell into place, and it was great. And thankful to Maryland for getting me my first job. Well, my first big girl job. I had other jobs.
Well, I could say that I'm very thankful too, and I know Sam is as well. And Sam, I'm going to flip-flop the questions that we have here because I want to get more into real estate. I want to talk about some trends, some things that you guys are really excited about as, you're rounding out 2025. I want to give you the opportunity to educate us and the listeners on some real estate trends that you're seeing or, that you're excited about for your business. So, Ryan, we're going to kick it to you. Then we're going to go to Terry, then Byron.
Awesome. Is anyone else hoping that Byron is sipping on an old fashioned, or is that just me?
Whiskey splash of Coke. Close. I'm not at a bar. I mean, I can make my own, but I was in a rush to get on the call.
We're gonna get along just fine. Hoops and bourbon. My being in the office tenant rep world, COVID really rocked, our industry, specifically the office world. The world was shut down. People were working remotely. And here we are, call it 5 years later, we're still seeing the effects on our business. So it's been a challenging 5 years. It's my first kind of down cycle that I've experienced. What I'm excited about, because I think that was Parker's question in terms of kind of trends and as we look forward is, you are seeing companies start to ask their people or have policies for people to come back to the office, especially some of the larger firms. I actually posted earlier on LinkedIn 2 local large companies, one that has Smith ties as well, Under Armour and T. Rowe Price, who both built very expensive, lavish, exciting headquarters in Baltimore City, and they are now having their employees come back 4 days a week. So that's exciting for someone in my world. And one of the big reasons that we're hearing from executives across all industries for why they want their people back is, mentorship, collaboration, culture, building a culture is really tough just over these virtual platforms. These virtual platforms are great for a lot of reasons, but it's hard to duplicate that in-person interaction, that water cooler talk, etc. So, before the employee kind of had the upper hand, so some of these firms, especially the smaller ones, were a little skittish to kind of enforce this policy, but we're seeing that come back. So I'm definitely excited on that. In addition, the market is really soft, the office market, generally speaking, especially in Baltimore, surrounding counties. So for me, being a tenant rep only advocate, so I'm always representing the company that is leasing the office space, not the landlord. It's also an opportunity for me to really add value when I have clients that are looking at renegotiating their leases or moving to a new office location in terms of the concession packages that are in the marketplace to secure a tenant-worthy tenant in the market. So, it's both an opportunity and we are starting to see people come back. I think those are the two major trends that I'm excited about here kind of locally and at the office, commercial real estate in the office specific sector.
I will say I'm in New York City, and our firm that Sam and I work at built this beautiful new building, and we were just flushed into COVID. And then they told everyone to go home, and they had this great new building that no one was in. And we still don't have a mandate. Thankfully, I like the flexibility, but I find myself going back in because your exact point, Ryan, I'm like craving that human connection, being around others, being able to just meet people rather than just working to the computer and chiming in every day. So I appreciate that. Terry, let's go to you. What are you excited about in your industry?
I'm excited because all the buzz in the news is that rates are going down, so that is going to spark residential, people buying again. I mean, it is, I know you're in New York, so it's even more, but in our area and most of the country, it is really expensive. It is hard for someone in their 20s, to go out and buy their first home. That used to be a thing, being a first-time home buyer, everyone's scared, and they're like, I don't want to, because, during COVID, you had, the bidding wars and all that, but you had the lower interest rates. So now the interest rates have gone up a little, but the competition has gone down. So my point is, it's always a good time to buy because you can always, it's going to, the price will offset with the rates and things like that. And I see the trends now. Like we've been, a little bit slower in residential, but all it takes is conversation and news to say that the rates dropped. And then today our phones are ringing like crazy. Everyone's like, oh, I think I'm going to refinance. I'm going to do that, blah, blah, blah. But so that's exciting for us because we're going to go through that again. And I have never really worried about, when it bottoms out. Well, I kind of worried during the 2008 financial crash. I'm not going to lie about that. That was pretty bad. But it always comes back. It's so cyclical, and we need some down times to get ready for the up times again, and just be prepared, go through the changes. And so right before COVID in 2019 is actually when I graduated with my MBA. And so I was more prepared for, working remote with things like that. However, we never really went completely remote. We were considered essential. And so I think maybe a day or two, I was not, there, and it was in the office more and more because of being an in-person kind of business, and things were not able to, legal documents were not ready to be, e-recorded and all that stuff at the time. It's gotten better. COVID actually helped push that along. But I was literally doing curbside settlements during that time. And, it was a time for learning, and it helped. I'm so glad that I got my MBA when I did, because I was more prepared for it. I was even more prepared, to help one of my sons that was still in school, because I had just done the online MBA. So I knew how the platforms worked and things like that. And I was like, okay, so everything happens for a reason. And there were times when I was doing the MBA program, I was like, oh my God, why did I sign up for this? I've got too much going on. I want to quit. I'm like, I can't quit because my kids know I did this, and I don't want them to quit college. So I had to do it, but it all has worked out. But I'm excited now because, like I said, I think that the news is sparking people that were hesitant about buying to do it now.
I think 2020 really showed us we can do things just in new ways. Curbside settlements, never heard of that. I can't imagine how those went down. But it's really inspiring to hear how you feel that there's really a lot of excitement in the industry. And while it can be cyclical, there's always something happening. Ryan, were you going to jump in?
I was going to just quickly chime in, Terry, that excites me as well, because our family has all of our eggs in the real estate basket, because my wife's a residential real estate agent. So, hearing the rates dropping and activity uptick is a positive for the Miller household as well. So I'm going to add that, Parker, to my answer in terms of trends I'm excited about that Terry just mentioned.
I love it. And Byron, we'll go to you. I know you're big in the construction industry. Obviously, I read up that you're big on mentoring emerging talent. Workforce development is obviously huge in the architecture and construction industry. It's like almost like you need more people to have these skills to do the job. So really curious from your perspective, what are you excited about?
So I'll start off. I'm actually kind of split between Terry and Ryan. So I'm also excited that people are going back to offices. We do a lot of commercial as well, and on the commercial side, it's mainly any kind of interior work. So spec, build outs, really not really turnovers, mainly like build outs and some spec suites. So and then a lot of maintenance work. So we do a lot of like interior painting, drywall and painting for mainly for law firms. That's kind of been our niche. And so partners within the law firms are like, hey, we want this, when we bring a client in here, we want the walls to look perfect. So we will repaint that wall month after month after month. And that has, it's been good. And they're happy. So that's been great. On the residential side, equally as excited with, rates coming down. That means more opportunity, as well as the market being in a, pretty good spot. For a while, we were talking about bubbles and, it's kind of moving a little bit away from that. And so it means that clients can afford to do, renovations or buy that next house or, do a tear down or whatever that might be. So that's what I'm excited about. Yeah.
A lot of exciting trends and times. I mean, almost to the day, perfect timing for us to discuss all of this. So thank you guys for your insights. I want to bring us back to University of Maryland, right? We've mentioned a couple times how some of our Terp connections, our learnings and education at Smith and Maryland have helped get us to where we are today. So I want to ask each of you, thinking for one specific thing from your experience, your education, your connections at UMD, how has that helped you become the human and the person you are today? Terry, you're our current student, it sounds like. I think we might have to start with you.
I just think that I met Ryan through the board, the alumni board, and you never know when they ask you to do something like can you participate in some kind of panel? Can you do this? Every time I do that, I always say, I made a friend. I made a connection. I had a great discussion with someone. I learned something from them. I think it does when you do get involved and on a personal level. It does. It makes it more enjoyable and it makes you feel more of in a community. When I went to Maryland, like I said, in the early '90s and stuff. Oops. I had great connections and I did Greek life. I did things, but then there's this gap where you don't, like I said, life happens, things happen, and you kind of lose. And you watch a game on TV and you're like, oh, that's great, but you're not really feeling a part of it. So to get back involved, through the alumni groups or going back to school and things like that, I feel more connected again, and just a part of something.
Beautiful answer. Brian, to you.
Yeah, I was going to say it really builds on what I was actually sitting here thinking and that connection of how Terry and I met. But, I grew up having that Terp pride that either Parker or Sam kind of touched on earlier, and that was centered a lot around Maryland basketball, right, in the sports. And then having gone there, graduated, I've always been that social networker. And then a big part of my business model moving into the commercial real estate world was networking, building relationships, connecting the dots, trying to figure out how I can help others that I'm meeting, and really got involved back with Smith. Before I was just going to basketball games to watch the Terps play, but when getting involved with Smith, firstly on the Young Alumni Council, and then for 2 of the 4 years on the board via the Young Alumni Council, sitting in these board meetings with a lot of really, really successful entrepreneurs, executives, C-level folks running multi-million, even billion-dollar companies, and seeing how open these people at all different levels were to having a conversation or trying to help. I was typically the youngest in the room, or if not, one of them, if not the youngest, and just seeing that openness to help and connect. And I've always done that again on the social side, but it's just been amplified as I've gotten more involved intimately with the Smith community and just the University of Maryland as a whole. And so now, I've always been, you got to shoot your shot since we're talking a lot of hoops. So I'm always going to ask the question, but seeing the openness in terms of the return emails, phone calls, etc. And sometimes I sit there thinking to myself, why are they even talking to me? These people, they don't need one more friend, but I think there's a genuine interest to making a difference, giving back. Mentorship was mentioned. So that's been a pretty eye-opening thing for me. Like, I knew the network was powerful, but as I've really gotten ingrained in the university, it's been even more eye-opening for how powerful it is. And frankly, I think there's so much opportunity to build on what's existing today to take it to a whole nother level.
Great answer. And one of the reasons why we're doing this spotlight, there are so many incredible Terps around the country that we want to spotlight. And so whether we're talking real estate, we're talking basketball, we're talking crab cakes, Maryland people, we like to connect and we like to help each other out. So I think it's a great answer. Byron, round us out here.
Yep. So the world is small, and I think that, it's tiny, right? And especially within the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, it's even smaller. And then within the group of people who went to Maryland, it becomes like, everybody, right? And so leveraging that has been, great. I can, like, my first renovation over 100,000 was for a Terp, right? And it was a long shot. Probably shouldn't have won the bid, right? I don't know if I think I was, probably on the lower end in terms of the bid, but still, I didn't have any reputation to do what I was doing, and I came in and I crushed it. And then they have continued to refer, and I can pull countless examples that tie, to Maryland, that are, client related, or, kind of that you need to get to this person that is letter D, and then, letter C also went to Maryland, or letter B went to Maryland, right? So kind of helping you bridge that gap. I see it all the time. It happens to me all the time. So, world is small, and Maryland makes it smaller.
It definitely helps make it smaller. Ryan, you're going to jump in there?
Well, I was going to say, Terry's probably heard this term, Smaltimore. For those New York, DC, etc., maybe you haven't heard it, but if you get asked where you went to school and you answer your college, you say Maryland, they know you're not from Baltimore. So but the world is so small, and that's something that I'm a huge proponent of, and then, Smaltimore being even smaller. So I love those small world connections, and I just never cease to be amazed by how small the world is in the business world, social world, etc.
Well, I'm a Baltimore guy in New York City. I just want to put that out there. And sometimes New York City feels very large. But I will say there will be times when I'm wearing my Terps hat and someone's calling out like, oh, see you at Bentley's. And I'm like, hell yeah. So, next question.
Oh, sorry.
Really quick, Parker.
Oh, go ahead. You go ahead, man.
I was going to say, where'd you go to school, Parker?
I went to Boys Latin in Baltimore. Yeah.
No, I was gonna round it off by saying, I was in the same fraternity with Jared, and that's the only reason why I'm on this, doing this right now, because Jared sent me a text like, hey, would you want to jump on? And I was like, absolutely. I would say that this is me reaching back towards, towards Maryland, kind of thank it for all of those connections that have got me to this point. I really want to, tap back in with Maryland. Kind of my resolution, one of them this year, was just to give thanks and, reach out to all the people that have had a positive impact, and helped me get to this point. And so I literally spoke at my high school yesterday, to, a bunch of kids there, and, just trying to reach back. And like Terry said, every time you do it, you're always like, man, like that was so well worth it. I've either left with a friend, or I, made a business connection or something. So.
Well, that tees up my next question perfectly, Byron. When you're back on campus, all of you, you had a feeling. You're back on campus, all of you, you're educating some young Terps, maybe connecting with some alumni Terps. You finish that connection. What's the one place you got to go to before you leave campus? We'll start with you, Terry.
Oh, well, you have to remember when I was there, the VU was still there. It's not there anymore. It's something else.
It's Cornerstone.
Yeah, Cornerstone. So I will say I have gone back there. But Bentley's, I guess, is the place that you kind of have to go. I'm just trying to, yeah, I guess it would be Bentley's because the other ones have all changed names at this point. That was where I went the last time, I think, when we did a get to. Oh, no, it was after that. There's a place behind the hotel. I can't remember the name of that, but that was nice. It was a good place to meet up, and I think that day there was like lacrosse games and things like that going on, and there was a good crowd in there, and I enjoyed that.
There's always a good crowd anywhere you go, and those lug nuts from Bentley's, that was Sam's go-to every time. I know that. Byron, what about you?
My definitely Bentley's. I mean, 100%. Not even, yeah, for sure. For sure. There's there's not even another, on campus, like I'm definitely going to stop in the rec. I'll probably stop in, the like arena, like and see just because I spent time there, like a lot of time there. But after those two stops, I'm I'm in Bentley's, probably drinking either Reposado on the rocks or whiskey and splash of Coke.
Ryan's going to be drinking Natty Boh with a little Old Bay on the rim,
I didn't say
I'm
what I was
sure.
drinking in college.
You're going to really make my Baltimore accent come out with the Natty Boh. When I'm back at Maryland, it's usually either for something Smith School related, so I'm at Van Munching, or I'm back for most times a basketball game, so I'm at the Xfinity Center. Definitely still go to Bent's, but Bent's is a bit of a poke from my typical parking spot. Oftentimes we're trying to stay closer up on Route 1, closer to Xfinity Center. Trying to get into Looney's. Like Looney's was there my senior year. So my friends and I frequent there. Saw Stephon Diggs pick up the Maryland hat, commit to Maryland. So I got some cool memories there. So I'd say Looney's is probably the go-to spot. Because that gets packed, we find ourselves always looking for new spots as well before games.
Sam, what about
I'm
you?
excited. Oh my gosh, dude. I mean, Parker, that's the last place we shared an adult beverage was at Bent's together. So we have certainly some good memories there. Yeah, I'm excited to get back on campus. Parker, we're going to see you for a football game, hopefully this year, and we can get to go see our Terps play some football before basketball season starts. So I love all those answers. We're all going to have to meet up at Bentley's, it sounds like, in person sometime soon. I want to round out our episode of this UMD Alumni Spotlight on real estate with one final question for each of you. And this is selfish because Parker and we have done our Elevation Nation podcast, like I said, over 400 times. And when we speak around the country and when we have folks come on the podcast, the one thing that unites them, besides being Terps in this case, is something we call a mental motto. It's a phrase, a quote, a slogan that embodies who you are and how you live your life. And so we want to ask each of you, I know we're putting you on the hot seat here to come up with something, what your mental motto is. I won't call on anyone, but if anyone is ready, feel free to raise your hand, come off mute. We'd love to hear your mental motto.
All right, I'll start, because I always say, the harder you work, the luckier you get. Because a lot of times people will say someone's lucky. Oh, they're lucky. They did this, they did that. If they own a business or this and that. But that's kind of a motto that I say. Well, they're lucky because they work really, really hard. They work like Ryan for $10 an hour until they're seen, and then they got lucky because they work so hard.
And I'm happy to jump in next. And I love that one, Terry. I think for me, it's giving back to those less fortunate, and also like just being a mentor. I actually had big bold letters here, giving back, written down before the question. So as I looked down at my kind of notes, I was like, that's something that I'm always really focused on, whether that's through Smith, whether that's through other charities that I'm on the board of. And so that I'm going to go with that one for my motto that I really try to live by.
Both of those were awesome because I'm still. I feel like there's so many that kind of come together for me. I would say the most important thing that has gotten me, I think, to this point, definitely is like has to do with the law of attraction, right? It has to do with speaking things into existence, and a big part of that is actually something that Terry said, as well as what Ryan said. In order to practice by, kind of to attract, right? You give off what you attract, right? So you attract what you give off, excuse me. So if I want to, have the biggest construction company in the world, I have to have gratitude. I have to give back. I have to be thankful for everything that has come to me until this point. But I also have to work my butt off, right? I have to work as hard and be ready for the opportunities and the blessings that I am claiming from, God, the universe, whatever you believe in. So that's mine.
Incredible mental mottos. And I want to express my gratitude on behalf of Parker, myself, the University of Maryland, and the Smith School. We all want to thank you three for your time, for your contributions to UMD, and thank you for your insights. I'm so grateful and honored that you three now are in our world and we can all connect, hopefully in person soon at Bent's. So thank you three for joining us today, and everybody out there listening, tune in to the next UMD Alumni Spotlight coming soon.